Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and tonight we're going to be learning how to play Disney Lorcana being released by Ravensburger. To begin setup, each player will take their deck of cards, shuffle them, and place them nearby in the play area. We're using this provided playmat that came with the starter deck to help keep things organized. The other player's deck will be kept just off screen, but cards will be pulled from it if examples are necessary. Make sure to place your lore tracker, if you have one from the starter deck, on the 0 space, or if you want to track your lore some other way, that's fine as well. Place a supply of damage tokens nearby, and then each player will draw a hand of 7 cards. After this, you'll randomly determine a first player, and you're ready to begin. In a game of Lorcana, your goal is to get to 20 lore. You do this by taking quest actions with the characters and allies that you'll play, and we'll look at that in more detail in a moment. In a game of Lorcana, you'll take a full turn, and then once you pass, it will then be the next player's turn, and this will continue until someone has triggered the end-game condition. A player's turn will follow the same steps. At the start of your turn, any cards that are exerted will be placed face up again. This won't be applicable on the very first turn, but just for an example, that will happen at the start of every turn. After all of your exerted cards are refreshed, you'll then carry out any start of turn effects on any cards that may be present in your play area. After that's been done, you'll draw one card from the top of your deck, and then you're ready to take actions. It is important to note, however, that in the very first turn of the game, the first player won't draw a card from the top of their deck. From the second turn on, however, that will happen at the start of every player's turn. Once a player has completed these beginning phase steps, you'll then move into the main phase of your turn. And on your turn, you can do a number of different things. But the first thing we'll talk about is playing ink into your inkwell. This is a very important resource that you'll use throughout the entire game. Any card in your hand that has this gold circle around the card's cost in the top left can be played as ink. It's important to note that any card like this that doesn't have that gold frame cannot be used as ink. To play a card as ink, you'll first reveal the card to the opposing player and then place it face down in your inkwell. This is now an ink resource that can be used immediately and for the rest of the game to pay for certain costs, whether that be playing cards or using abilities. And the card that you assign as ink will not be playable for its card effects for the rest of the game, so it's an important decision to make. The next thing that you can do on your turn is you can play a card. You can use the ink that you've played immediately to pay for the costs of cards as well. There are a number of different cards. They can be allies, items, or actions, but all cards will have a cost in the top left that has to be paid to play that card. So for instance, to play this Olaf card, you would have to pay 1 ink. To do that, you exert any unexerted ink that you have in your inkwell until you've paid the full cost of the card that you want to play. In this example, it costs 1 ink, and we've exerted the ink that we just played, so that card is now on the table. It's also important to note that cards cannot be exerted or used right away whenever they enter the play area unless they have a when played ability or unless they have a special keyword called rush. There's a different type of card called items, like this Dinglehopper here, and items can be used the turn that they're played. And in fact, using an item is another action that you can take on your turn. So for instance, if you have an item in play that has an action on it like this card, you can follow the instructions on that item to take the listed action. Items will have different costs to pay and different effects that they may have. For instance, this card shows a symbol to exert the card, but allows you to remove 1 damage from a chosen character if you do so. There are also cards that might ask you to banish the card, meaning put it in the discard pile or things of that nature. And there are also some items that will just give you ongoing static abilities when certain conditions are met. There's also a third type of card that can be played called an action card. To play these cards, you would pay the cost in the top left similar to all of the other cards that you'll play, but these cards would just have some type of an effect, and then once that effect is complete, the card would be discarded. There are 2 types of action cards, normal actions and actions known as songs. Songs are slightly different, and we'll look at those in more detail later. Some characters will also have abilities or actions that they might be able to take without exerting the card. This particular character says, for instance, whenever this character quests, you get to do an additional effect on top of the quest action. Once an ally has been in play for more than one turn, you can do a number of actions with an ally if you want to. The first action that you can take is a quest action. To quest with an ally, you would exert that ally's card, and then you would gain a number of lore equal to the lore signals here in the bottom right hand of the card. In this instance, this character would give you 1 lore. Different characters may have different values. For instance, this character would give you 2 lore when it quests. You would mark this lore by moving your tracker on the provided playmat. Another action you can perform with an ally card is to challenge another ally. You can only challenge an ally card that's exerted. So for instance, a player could challenge Olaf because he's exerted himself to do a quest action. If an opponent wanted to challenge Olaf, they could use one of their characters to challenge him. And to do that, they would need to exert their card as well. So for instance, in this case, Aurora is challenging Olaf. When characters are challenged, you compare their strength value, which is this number in this spiky circle, to their willpower or defense, which is the number in this shield. And damage is assigned simultaneously to each character in the challenge. So in this instance, Aurora would do 3 damage to Olaf, and Olaf would do 1 damage to Aurora. You can mark this damage by placing damage counters on the character cards, and it's important to note that damage doesn't go away in between rounds. So essentially, Aurora now has 4 health left. Olaf would be banished because he has no willpower remaining and would be placed in the discard pile. On their turn, a player can also use the ability of one of their allies in play that causes that ally to exert the card. For instance, on Yago, you can use his You Got a Problem ability, which shows the exert symbol right here. You would exert this card, and then a chosen character of another player would gain Reckless during their turn, meaning that they can't take the quest action and they must challenge another card if available. And it's important to remember that an ally can't take an action that would cause them to exert on the same turn that they're played. There are also some actions, whether they be on items or characters, that might have a resource cost to pay before you can take the action on the card. This resource cost has to be paid by exerting ink. So in this example, to take this effect, a player would have to exert 1 ink, and then they would have to banish this card to use its effect. And once again, banishing the card simply means placing it in the player's discard pile. There are also a number of statuses that characters can have, like evasive, where this card can't be challenged unless another character has an evasive ability, etc. There will also be many allies and characters that have specific abilities that are unique to their card. For instance, whenever this character takes a quest action, you can choose an opponent's character to have a negative effect, and while Mother Gothel is exerted, a negative effect would apply to all opponents' characters. There are also some ally cards that have abilities that take effect when they are played, and these are the only types of character abilities that can break the rule where an ally can't exert to do an action the same turn they're played. The last action to mention is the song action. There's a specific type of action card with the song tag. These cards have an alternate way to pay for their cost. A character who has a cost that's equal to or greater than the cost of a song action can exert themselves to pay for the cost of that action instead of having to exert ink. So for instance, if this Mickey Mouse character exerted to pay for the cost of this song, you would then be able to play this song following its full action effects, and you would still have all of your ink to do other things with. And once again, it's important to remember that a character can't be exerted even to pay for the cost of a song on the same turn that it's played. Players can only play 1 ink on their turn, but they can take any of the actions that we've just looked at as many times as they want to and are able. Once a player has decided to take all of the actions that they want to on their turn, they would then pass, and it would then be the next player's turn. Play will continue in this way until one player reaches 20 lore. At that point, that player would win the game immediately. Alright everybody, that was our video. Hopefully it was helpful and hopefully it was informative. If you still have any questions about how to play the game, please comment below or email me directly at thedicey@gmail.com and I'll answer those questions if I can. You can also always connect with us on social media or by visiting our Board Game Geek Guild, and as always, if you find what I'm doing useful or helpful, make sure to give us a thumb, give us a subscribe, and click on the bell icon to be notified whenever we release new content. Thanks so much for watching everybody, and until next time, I'll see you at the table.